episode 2020. Hello everybody, it's Katie here, and it is that time to talk about the books that I have loved over the past year. But first of all, you might have noticed that I haven't been active on the channel over the past couple of months, and I just wanted to take some time to explain what's been happening in my life. So I am going to be talking about illness and the death of a loved one. So if you don't like hearing about that sort of stuff and it upsets you, because I know my anxiety always gets triggered by stuff like that. So if you're not up for hearing about those things, then I will leave a little timestamp in the description so you can just skip on to the bookish talk. But for the rest of you, I just wanted to give you a little life update. So in a year that has already caused so much heartbreak, I lost my dad to cancer. It happened so very quickly and I'm still trying to process everything. It was one of those terrifyingly aggressive cancers that often doesn't show any symptoms until it's far too late. So up until the end of October, my dad was fine. He was his usual active self. My family don't drive, so we walk literally everywhere. My dad had a half-hour walk to work. He'd walk to every shop he needed to go to. He'd walk the dog as well. He just loved being on his feet and moving around. And at the end of October, he just had a very rapid decline over a couple of days. So right at the very end of October, he got suddenly breathless whilst walking to work. On Halloween, he was taken into hospital. On the 5th of November, we found out it was cancer. And on the 12th of December, he passed away. So it was a matter of weeks between the diagnosis and him passing. That is how quickly everything went downhill. He just turned 57 in November whilst he was in hospital. He was far too young for anything like this to happen. I don't want to talk about it too much right now because, like I said, it's all very new, and if I start crying whilst talking, then I literally won't stop. I will talk about it more in the future because I like to be open about things, and I know how much hearing other people's experiences has helped me, so I hope that I can do that for somebody else in the future. But right now, I just wanted to explain where I've been, and also for the inconsistencies that are probably going to be on my channel for the foreseeable future. There will be times when I can't pick up a book to read, when I have no motivation to film videos, and that could go on for weeks. But then there will probably be times when I really need a distraction, so I will make a fun video in order to take my mind off everything. I really don't know how the next few months will play out, so yeah, I just wanted to let you all know. This is the first major loss that I've had, so it's the first time that I'm experiencing grief like this. Both sets of my grandparents passed away before I was born, so I've never had them in my life. I've always just had my parents. They are some of my best friends. We just get along so well. My dad specifically was somebody who always encouraged me in everything I did. I've spoken several times before about how much I've struggled with mental health, particularly my anxiety, because it stops me from doing so much. And he was always the person to remind me that I am doing the best that I can and that I'm not as useless as I feel. So to have him torn away from me so quickly in such a traumatic way, and during a year that is already so terrible, I can't even begin to process everything that I've gone through. Any year this would have been awful, but during a year when we couldn't even visit him in hospital until the very end, he couldn't have his friends and his family come and support him after the diagnosis, and we can't even have a proper funeral to celebrate his life. And I know so many other people are facing that this year, and I just feel for every single person that has had to go through this, because I wouldn't wish this on anyone. So yeah, it has been a pretty terrible couple of months, but I have been finding comfort in books for the past few weeks. So I really did want to get back on my channel and start filming videos because it's something that I love and it's a distraction, so it's much needed. So moving on from all the horrible things, let's talk about 2020 in books. So this year was actually a really good reading year for me. I managed to read about 30 books, which I know it probably doesn't seem a lot compared to everybody else, but for me it's a huge deal because I haven't hit my reading goal since 2016, because I have been in and out of reading slumps for the past few years, and I feel like I finally got out of that this year. So I'm actually really happy with what I managed to achieve this year in terms of books. I think I stopped putting pressure on myself to read a lot of the new books that everyone was reading. And I finally took the time to focus on the books that I've had on my shelves for years. So a lot of the stuff I read this year were books that have been around for a while. I finally read The Cruel Prince, I read Vicious. It was just a big catch-up year really. And in terms of my channel, I also posted a lot more content than what I have been doing over the past couple of years. One of my goals for the year was to post more, and I think I achieved that. So for my favourites for this year, I've only got 5 that really stuck out to me as favourites, even though I've loved mostly everything that I've read this year. It is Katie from the future here. So I realised when I was editing the video back that my brain is so scrambled up at the moment. I completely forgot to include one of my favourite books of the year, and it is a book that I completely adored, so I had to come back and film a little something to put it in there. It was the book that I read just before my whole life changed, so I think I can be forgiven for forgetting. But anyway, the book is Gameweavers by Rebecca Zahabi. I did speak a little bit about this in one of my reading updates, but at the time the book hadn't come out, so I didn't want to talk too much about it. It has been released now, it is out there in the wild. So this book is set in a world that is exactly the same as ours, except for the fact that people are able to craft things from their hands with a magical substance called twine. It is something that everybody can do, but some people are better than others, and people who are exceptionally talented in this can play twine. So twine is basically what football is in our world. It is the most popular sport. It's got the biggest fan base. What twine consists of is 2 players battle against each other in a football-like stadium, but they craft their own battlegrounds and their own creatures to fight against each other. And the player with the most location left on the board at the end of the game wins. So I love the concept for this book alone. But the story follows 2 Korean brothers called Sejun and Minjun. Sejun is one of the best twine players in the world. He's really talented, he's won lots and lots of games, but like I said, twine is to this world what football is to us. So the fans are the same as well. And as we know from football fans, there is a lot of prejudice against minorities still in that community, which is something that absolutely needs to change. So in this book, fans of twine are like that. And Sejun gets outed in the media for sleeping with men. So the story follows him trying to come to terms with sexuality whilst also questioning what twine really means to him, what his future is going to entail. And it's just a really clever look at how people in the public eye have to constantly make sacrifices with regards to their own personal life in order to stay famous for what they do. We also follow the younger brother Minjun and see how all of this affects his life, how it changes the relationship between the 2 brothers. And we also follow Sejun's love interest throughout the book as well. Even though it has a fantasy element to it, this book is very character driven. It's more about the characters than it is the sport, but the actual twine battle scenes in the book are really amazing as well. It's just got so much interesting elements to it. I'm always a sucker for magical realism anyway. This is definitely a book that I put in that category, because the world in this book is exactly the same as ours, except for the existence of twine. It's clever in so many ways, and it's just a great criticism of society. Even though it is a slightly twisted world, there are so many things in this story that we have problems with as well, and there are things that need to change. So yeah, I absolutely adored everything about this book. I loved the fictional sport. I loved the characters. I think I definitely recommend it to anyone who loved the All for the Game series. It's very, very different from that, but it also gave me the same sort of vibes with it revolving around a fictional sport. I can't believe I forgot to include this originally, but believe me when I say it was one of the best stories that I picked up this year. I'm so glad I had the opportunity to read it. I did take part in the blog tour for the book, so I will leave a link to my review down in the description if you want to check that out. So yeah, if you want something a little bit different to check out, then give this one a try. So the first one is Wonderland by Juno Dawson. This is a modern day retelling of Alice in Wonderland. It has a transgender main character. It's set in high society London, and it's just an absolutely wild ride of a book. Not only is it a mysterious and intriguing plot, but it also has really diverse characters and packs a lot of important information into the story. There's a lot of conversations that needed to be had within this book, and that's definitely one of the reasons why I loved it so much. That's one of the things that I admire the most about YA authors. They're just so unafraid to talk about the things that need to be talked about. So I flew through this one in a couple of days. I'm not surprised because I always love Juno's books anyway. She's just such a fantastic writer. So yeah, I think most of the books that I've really loved this year have been UK YA, which I'm really happy with because that's where I started in terms of books that I love. So I've been taking a lot of comfort in UK based books this year. And yeah, we just need to hype up UK authors a lot more because so many of them fly under the radar and they just deserve better. Which leads me perfectly onto the next book, and it is Heartbreak Boys by Simon James Green. I think I talk about Simon's books every year. I'm always shoving them at people because they're just so funny and so pure and heartwarming, and definitely the nice little escape that we need at the moment. So this book is about two former best friends, Jack and Nate. Both of them split up with their boyfriends at the very start of the book in some not very nice circumstances. So the two of them decide to reunite their friendship and go on a road trip together in order to prove to their ex-boyfriends that they are having the absolute best summer ever. It's very current in terms of social media. They start an influencer Instagram account where they make out that they're just having the best time and that their lives are perfect, and it's just very relevant because how many of us are guilty of doing that on social media? We tend to paint the best picture of ourselves online. So I think beneath all of the funny moments, and there are so many, there is important undertones to this book, but mostly I loved it just because of how much fun it is. It was a perfect summer read. So next up I have Loveless by Alice Oseman. I've been waiting a lifetime for this book. So this story follows a character called Georgia moving away to university with her two best friends, and it is mostly about her discovering that she's asexual. We lack ace characters so much in books, so this story was very much needed. There will be a lot of people who relate to this book who might end up questioning some things about themselves because of this book, and it's also great for people who don't really understand asexuality that much. I think it is a story that can teach a lot, as well as being entertaining and having this fantastic set of characters that you just fall in love with. Alice always manages to tackle subjects that we need to be talking about more, and this is definitely a book that came from the heart, and you can just tell that when reading it. So yeah, I had high expectations for this one going into it, and it went beyond them. So the next one, I am cheating a little bit because it didn't actually come out this year, but I read it at the start of the year, and it is now one of my favourite books of all time, so I had to get it in here somehow, and it is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I just absolutely fell in love with this book. I know I've already spoken about it on here, so I won't go over all of that again, but it is about a Hollywood icon. She decides to open up about her life to a journalist, and we skip between modern day with the journalist Monique and Evelyn telling her story through the years. And along the way we go through each of her 7 husbands whilst discovering who the true love of her life really was. And this book was just so cinematic. I could see it perfectly in my mind, and I think it would make such a gorgeous film, but at the same time I don't think any film could ever do it justice. But yeah, it's one of my favourite books. I know I'm going to go back and reread this a lot, so even though it wasn't published this year, it played a big part in my year. So yeah, so my final book this year, the one that I'm going to say is my favourite from 2020, is Chain of Gold by Cassandra Clare. And it surprised me quite a bit actually, because for the past few years Cassie has always been knocked off the top spot by another book. But this time she actually is number 1. I cannot think of another book I've read this year that I have loved more than this one. And even though I'm so associated with the Shadowhunter books, it's still a big surprise to me because over the past few years I haven't enjoyed the Shadowhunter world as much as I did in the past. That was mostly down to the fact that I didn't really like the Dark Artificers as much as I loved the other series. But then Chain of Gold happened and I've been firmly whipped back into place by Miss Cassandra Clare. I didn't go in with high expectations just in case, and it just absolutely whacked me over the head and reminded me why I love these stories so much. And I don't know whether it's because it's more connected to the Infernal Devices because of Will and Tessa, and that is my favourite of Cassie's stories, or whether it's just because I love these characters so much. But either way, I'm very happy that I loved this book as much as I did. I'm so excited for Chain of Iron. We don't have long to go now. It's going to get me through those first 2 months of 2021. So they were the 5 books from 2020 that stood out to me the most. I've really enjoyed getting back to reading this year, and I feel like I was reading for myself rather than other people, because I've definitely allowed myself to get to that point in the past. I think books have been the things that have kept me sane this year, if I'm honest. So yeah, I'm really grateful to all of the fantastic authors that have shared their stories with us this year. We very much needed them, and I can't wait to discover lots of new books in 2021. Please do let me know what your favourite books from the year were down in the comments. Also, I'm definitely seeking out stories that deal with grief at the moment, just because it's suddenly a huge part of my life. And as with everything else, I'm trying to use books to get through it. So if you have any recommendations, then please do feel free to drop them. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos over the past year. I've had a lot of fun getting back to my channel, doing videos that I've been wanting to do for such a long time. I am hoping that I can keep it up next year, but with the state of my life right now, who knows? But I'm gonna try my best, because books are what I take comfort in, and I love sharing my passion for books. So I fully intend to make as many videos as I can, but they probably will be all over the place whilst I adjust to this new normal in my life. There are lots of bookish things to look forward to in 2021 though, that I would really love to talk about. One major thing being Shadow and Bone. I know we got a teaser not long ago. It dropped during the most chaotic period of my life, so I couldn't really enjoy it as much as I wanted to, but I am so looking forward to this show. It might be my most anticipated TV show ever. I'm so excited and mildly terrified, but I fully intend to talk about the show if I can as it plays out. So yeah, it really means a lot that people have watched my videos this year. A huge thank you to everyone that's commented and dropped book recs and just had bookish conversations with me, because I love talking about books. I hope you guys have a happy new year. I think we all deserve a happy new year. To everyone that's lost someone or something in this year, because COVID has taken a lot from us, just know that you're not alone in what you're going through, and there are always people that are willing to listen. So definitely try and reach out if you feel like you need to talk to people, because after this year we absolutely need all the help that we can get. So I hope you all have good things coming to you in 2021. I will see you next time. Bye!